Hello everyone, today I'm going to read Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, chapter 3, I think. The Letters from No One, part 2. He sat on the bed and stared around him. Nearly everything in here was broken. The month-old sign camera was lying on top of a small working tank Dudley had once driven over next door's dog. In the corner was Dudley's first ever television set, which he had put his foot through when his favorite program had been cancelled. There was a large bird cage which had once held a parrot that Dudley had swapped at school for a real air rifle, which was up on a shelf with all the bent because Dudley's had sat on it. Other shelves were full of books. There were only things that looked as though they had never been touched. From downstairs came the sound of Dudley bawling at his mother. "I don't want him there. I need that room. Make him get out." Harry sighed and stretched out on the bed. Yesterday he'd given anything to be up here. Today he'd rather be back in his cupboard with the letter than up here without it. Next morning at breakfast, everyone was rather quiet. Dudley was in shock. He'd screaming whacked his father with his melting stick, been sick on purpose, kicked his mother, and thrown his tortoise through the greenhouse roof, and he still didn't have his room back. Harry was thinking about this time yesterday and bitterly wishing he'd opened the letter in the hall. Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia kept looking at each other darkly. When the post arrived, Uncle Vernon, who seemed to be trying to be nice to Harry, made Dudley go and get it. They heard him banging the smelting sticks all the way down the hall. And then he shouted, "There's another one! Mr. Harry Potter, the smallest bedroom for Privet Drive." With a strangled cry, Uncle Vernon leapt forward from his seat and ran down the hall, Harry right behind him. Uncle Vernon had to wrestle Dudley to the ground to get the letter from him, which was made difficult by the fact that Harry had grabbed Uncle Vernon around the neck from behind. After a minute of confused frightening, in which everyone got hit a lot by the smelting stick, Uncle Vernon straightened up, gasping for breath, with Harry's letter clutched in his hand. "Go to your cupboard, I mean your bedroom," he wheezed at Dudley. He wheezed at Harry. "Dudley, go, just go." Harry walked round and round his new room. Someone knew he had moved out of his cupboard, and they seemed to know he hadn't received his first letter. Surely that meant that they'll try again, and this time he'd make sure they didn't fail. He had a plan. The repair alarm clock rang at 6 o'clock the next morning. Harry turned it off quickly and dressed silently. He mustn't wake the Dursleys. He stole downstairs without turning any of the lights. He was going to wait for the postman on the corner of Privet Drive and get the letters from number 4 first. His heart hammered as he crept across the dark hall towards the front door. Ah! Harry leapt into the air. He trod on something big and squishy on the doormat. Something alive. Lights clicked on upstairs, and to his horror, Harry realized that big squishy something had been his uncle's face. Uncle Vernon had been lying at the foot of the front door in a sleeping bag, clearly making sure that Harry didn't do exactly what he'd been trying to do. He shouted at Harry for about half an hour and then told him to go and make a cup of tea. Harry shuffled miserably off into the kitchen, and by the time he got back, the post had arrived right into Uncle Vernon's lap. Harry could see 3 letters addressed in green ink. "I want," he began. Uncle Vernon was tearing the letters into pieces before his eyes. Uncle Vernon didn't go to work that day. He stayed at home and nailed up the letterbox. "See," he explained to Aunt Petunia through a mouthful of nails, "if they can't deliver them, they'll just give up." "I'm not sure that'll work, Vernon." "Oh, these people's minds work in strange ways, Petunia. They're not like yours and mine," said Uncle Vernon, trying to knock a nail with a piece of fruit cake Aunt Petunia had just brought him. On Friday, no fewer than 12 letters had arrived. They couldn't go through the letterbox, so had been pushed under the door, slot through sides, and few even forced through the small window in the downstairs toilet. Uncle Vernon stayed at home again. After burning the letters, he got out a hammer and nails and bored up the cracks around the front and back doors so no one could go out. Then he hummed, tiptoed to toes as he worked, and jumped at small noises. On Saturday, things began to get out of hand. 24 letters to Harry found their way into the house, rolled up and hidden inside each of the 2 dozen eggs that the very confused milkman had handed Aunt Petunia the living room window. While Uncle Vernon made furious telephone calls to the post office and the dairy trying to find someone to complain to, Aunt Petunia shredded the lettuce in her food mixer. Who on earth wants to talk to you this badly? Dudley asked Harry in amazement. On Sunday morning, Uncle Vernon sat down at breakfast table looking tired and rather ill, but happy. No posts on Sunday, he reminded them happily as he spread marmalade on his newspaper. No damn letters today. Something came whizzing down the kitchen chimney, and he spoke and caught him sharply on the back of the head. Next moment, 30 or 40 letters came pelting out of his fireplace like bullets. The Dursleys ducked, but Harry leapt into the air trying to catch one. Out! Out! Uncle Vernon seized Harry around the waist and threw him into the hall. When Aunt Petunia and Dudley had run out with their arms over their faces, Uncle Vernon slammed the door shut. They could hear the letter still streaming into the room, bouncing off the walls and floor. That does it, said Uncle Vernon, trying to speak calmly but pulling his great tufts out of his moustache at the same time. I want you all back here in 5 minutes. Ready to leave. We are going away. Just pack some clothes. No arguments. He looked so dangerous with half of his moustache missing that no one dared to argue. 10 minutes later, they had wrenched their way through the boarded-up doors and were in the car, speeding towards the motorway. Dudley was sniffing in the back seat. His father had hit him around the head for holding them up while he tried to pack his television, video, and computer in the sport bag. They drove, and they drove. Even Aunt Petunia didn't dare to ask where they were going. But now and then Uncle Vernon would take a sharp turn and drive into the opposite direction for a while. Shake 'em off, he'd mutter whenever he did this. They didn't stop to eat or drink all day. But nightfall Dudley was howling. He'd never had such a bad day in his life. He was hungry. He had missed 5 television programs and he'd wanted to see. He'd never gone so long without blowing up an alien on his computer. Uncle Vernon stopped at the last outside of gloomy-looking hotel on the outskirts of a big city. Dudley and Harry shared a room with twin beds and damp, misty sheets. Dudley snored, but Harry stayed awake, sitting on the windowsill, staring down at the lights, causing pause and wondering. They ate steel cornflakes and cold tinned tomatoes on toast for breakfast next day. They had just finished when the owner of the hotel came over to the table. Excuse me, but is one of you Mr. Hedge Potter? I only got about 100 of these at the front desk. She held up a letter so that they could read the green ink address. Mr. Harry Potter, room 17, Railview Hotel, Cokeworth. So it's over there. Harry made a grab for the letter, but Uncle Vernon knocked his hand out of the way. The woman stared. I'll take them, said Uncle Vernon, standing up quickly and following her from the dining room. Wouldn't it be better to just go home, dear? Aunt Petunia suggested timidly hours later, but Uncle Vernon didn't seem to hear her. Exactly what he was looking for was no one of them knew. He drove into the middle of a forest, got out, looked around, shook his head, and got back into the car and drove, and they went again. The same thing happened in the middle of a plug field, halfway across the suspension bridge and the top of the multi-story car park. Daddy's gone mad, hasn't he? Dudley asked Aunt Petunia Dudley late that afternoon. Uncle Vernon had parked at the coast, locked them all inside the car, and disappeared. It started to rain. The great drops beat on the roof of the car. Dudley shivered. It's Monday, he told his mother. The great Humbertos on on tonight. I want to stay somewhere with a television. Monday. This reminded Harry of something. If it was Monday, Luke could usually count on Daddy to know the days of the week because of television. And tomorrow, Tuesday, Harry's 11th birthday. Of course, his birthday weren't never exactly fun. Last year, the Dursleys had given him a coat hanger and a pair of Uncle Vernon's old socks. Still, you weren't 11 every day. Uncle Vernon was back and he was smiling. He was also carrying a long, thin package that didn't answer Aunt Petunia's when she was asking what he'd brought. Found the perfect place, he said. Come on, everyone out. It was very cold outside the car. Uncle Vernon was pointing at what looked like a large rock way out to the sea. Perched on the top of the rock was a miserable little shack you could imagine. One thing was certain, there was no television in there. Storm forecast tonight, said Uncle Vernon gleefully, clapping his hands together, and this gentleman kindly agreed to lend us his boat. The toothless old man came ambling up to them, pointing with a rather wicked grin at an old rowing boat bubbling in the iron grey water below them. I've already got us some rations, said Uncle Vernon. So all aboard. It was freezing in the boat. Icy sea spray and rain crept down their necks and chilly wind whipped their faces. After what seemed like hours, they reached the rock where Uncle Vernon, slipping and sliding, led the way down to the broken house. Then inside was horrible. It smelled strongly of seaweed. The wind whistled through the gaps of the wooden walls, and at the fireplace was damp and empty. There were only 2 rooms. Uncle Vernon's rations turned to be a packet of chips each and 4 bananas. He tried to start a fire, but the empty crisp packets just smoked and shriveled up. Could do with some of those letters now, eh? He said cheerfully. He was in a good mood. Obviously, he thought nobody stood a chance of reaching them in the storm tonight to deliver post. Harry privately agreed, though he thought that didn't cheer him up. As night fell, the promised storm blew around them. Spray from the high waves splattered the walls of the hut, and the fireplace wind rattled filthily. Aunt Petunia found a few moldy blankets in the second room and made up a bed for Dudley on the moth-eaten sofa. She and Uncle Vernon went off to the lumpy bed next door, and Harry was left to find the softest bit of floor he could and curl up under the thinnest, most raged blanket. The storm raged more and more furiously as the night went on. Harry couldn't sleep. He shivered and he turned over, trying to get comfortable, his stomach rumbling with hunger. Dudley's snores were drowned by the low rolls of the thunder that started near midnight. The light in Dale of Dudley's watch, which was dangling over the edge of the sofa on his fat wrist, told Harry he'd been 11 in 10 minutes. He lay and watched his birthday tick nearer, wondering if the Dursleys would remember it at all, wondering where the letter writer was now. 5 minutes to go. Harry heard something creak outside. He hoped the roof wasn't going to fall in, although that might be warmer if it did. 4 minutes to go. Maybe the house in Prairie Drive would be so full of letters when they got back that he'd be able to steal one somehow. 3 minutes to go. Was that the sea slapping hard on the rock like that? And 2 minutes to go. What was that funny crunching noise? Was the rock crumbling into the sea? 1 minute to go, he'd be 11, 30 seconds, 20, then 9. Maybe he'd wake up Dudley just to annoy him. 3, 2, 1, boom. The whole shake shivered and Harry sat bolt upright and staring at the door. Someone outside knocking to come in. Thank you for watching. Tomorrow or a few days later, I will read Chapter 4, The Keeper of the Keys. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Bye.